And then Sabato will kick us off.
Yeah.
And we are live, gentlemen.
Wonderful.
All right.
Well, thank you all for joining us for another edition of Freerun, where we talk about all the things that are going on in the food and beverage industry today. And joining us today, we have a really special guest, a good friend, JJ Johnson of Field Trip in Harlem. And for those of you that don't know JJ, he's not only a great chef, but a great human in our industry and for his community. JJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, JJ, but started out the Cecil at 2013, Esquire's Best New Restaurant in America in 2018. He opened the Henry at the Life Hotel, which was on Pete Wells and the GQ list of Best New Restaurants in 2018. And last September opened Field Trip. And so for anyone that is looking for an amazing picnic option this summer in Central Park, look no further. I had the chance of experiencing it this past weekend, and I can vouch for it firsthand. So JJ, thank you so much for being here with us.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So JJ, before we dive into things, for those of our viewers and listeners that haven't heard about Field Trip, can you tell us a little about the concept and what inspired it and how it came about?
Field Trip is a rice bowl shop. It's located in Harlem, New York. It was inspired by my travels. I traveled all around the world cooking, Ghana, Israel, Singapore, India. And everywhere I went, I realized that rice was a spectacular dish that was in the center of the table that everybody loved and was fighting over. But, you know, here at home, rice was always a side dish that we would just like use as carbs to eat in a meal. And I did massive research. Glenn Roberts of Anson Mills is my mentor on the rice side of picking the right grains that represented the right places in the world. And, you know, rice I hated as a kid, but I believe that rice is everyone's culture. So our slogan is rice is culture. All of our rice is freshly milled, non-enriched, gluten-free, all that good stuff. Not that rice has gluten in it, but I just say that to make sure people understand. But the big thing was the reason why I put it in Harlem was I believe that if I was able to make a fast casual restaurant work in a black and brown neighborhood, that it can work anywhere else in the world. And mostly any fast casual would come into a community like Harlem in their second or their third or fourth phase of growth. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to use it as our first phase, as our kickoff. And it's been going pretty well. It was going pretty well before the pandemic, and we're trying to figure out how to survive during the pandemic. Don't forget the pandemic is still going on.
I think we all are. I have to confess, I don't buy many single-use kitchen appliances, but my rice cooker is one of my favorite tools in my kitchen. It's a game changer.
Same.
I love it.
I still boil water.
Still boil water?
I just boil water and put a little bit of butter in there.
It's a game changer, Mike.
I know. I guess I'll have to get one. I had one in college.
They also have cable TV. We'll talk about that later, Mike, but that's something else.
Work on it. I'm rubbing six together.
JJ, when you've been cooking in Harlem for how long now?
I've been in Harlem since 2012.
Okay.
That was the first time I was ever the helm of a kitchen at the Cecil. Mm-hmm. They took a risk with me on the Afro-Asian American concept. And I never in a million years, as a kid that's cooked through New York City, would ever think that I would be cooking in Harlem, right? Most of the time you want to be cooking in Tribeca, NoHo, Soho, West Village. And I cooked in Harlem and really made a staple out of a place, the Cecil. Mm-hmm. Now it's a different Cecil. It's a steakhouse, a different operating company. But yeah, and it felt really great. A historical building. Also then ran the sister restaurant called Minton's, which was a jazz club where all the famous jazz musicians or where bebop music was founded. So yeah, I've been cooking in Harlem the whole time. I've always lived in Harlem. My dad's from Harlem in the Bronx. I've lived with all my aunts that have lived in Harlem. They have sheltered me until I was able to go out on my own.
So when you look at that community and you saw you were coming up with Field Trip, what was the niche or the need that you saw in the community that you were looking to fill with that?
You know, when I was at the Cecil, many people would say, man, I wish I could eat this food every day, but I can't afford it. And I said, let me figure out how to make this affordable restaurant where I can see patrons and guests come through 3 to 4 times a week. That's always a goal, and not break the bank. You know, spend anywhere from our cheapest bowl with tax $9.79. If you get a bunch of things, you leave spending about $22. If I can see people that can come every day, and be affordable, come with their kids, moms and strollers, that's always been the goal. And I'm building the ideal community restaurant. There's policemen, there's firefighters, there's your next door neighbors, the people you see in the street are dining together or getting takeout together. That's what really, you know, drove the project. Salvador, you know, I called you at one point and let you see the menu right before we went live, and you said, hey, your prices are too high. And I said, well, how am I going to survive? And you told me a little mad.
So he charges by the grain now. That's what we do, by the rice.
No,
How many pieces of rice you want in there? That's a secret.
So, Chef, I'm curious, was the affordability a reason that you decided to go the quick service route instead of kind of the full service route? Did you see that as a concept that was more easily accepted into the community rather than doing full service?
Yeah, I mean, a full service rice bowl shop was the goal when we first started, like doing the profit and loss statement. And, you know, would somebody pay $22 for a rice bowl? Would they pay $19 for a rice bowl? That was always the biggest thing. No, probably no. And then when we did the numbers on the fast casual, was like, okay, if I can get people to spend $20 or $15, and I can do anywhere from 150 to 300 people a day, I can make more money that way, pay investors back, show a proof of concept that has legs, and expand it. So yeah, I was never in the fast casual world before. This is super brand new to me.
Chef, you mentioned that you started as a chef in a restaurant, and when you went to this concept, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make from with your chef hat on versus your business hat on?
Creativity, changing the menu was the biggest change. Like, oh, I want to put this on the menu, or oh, I want to introduce this, or let's cook with this flavor now. It's like, nah, man, chill, Chef JJ. Like that other voice. Like, let's make this as a business, and let's figure out how to make this right, and let's get our food costs down. You know, I use Cisco now as my vendor. I would have never used Cisco before as a young chef because people told me, you know, they give you garbage food or the food quality isn't good. That's wrong. They're really a transportation company. They will ship anything from anywhere for you because that's why they're a big player in the game. They dropped, the moment I left Chef Warehouse and went to them, my food costs dropped 4% just off the bat because they had the buying power, right? And this was, I use antibiotic free range chicken. They're getting massive amount of that in. I'm able to then piggyback on that price. So that helped us out a lot. So yeah, a lot of different business hats. I think the layout of the space was a very chef-driven layout where the space is rectangular and you see the open kitchen from the street. And I wanted to have, you know, pull-down stools. But no, that doesn't work in a fast casual. Nobody wants to sit at a pull-down stool. So I probably would change it, you know, moving forward on the next unit, the design of the space will change.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of change, you know, we're talking about how, you know, we're still in the middle of this pandemic and a lot of restaurants are having to pivot. And you did a bit of a career pivot, kind of going into the counter service, and Field Trip's only 9 months old. You got some great press out of the gate. And then, you know, when you open a business, you have a plan and then you try and stick to it. But then this came along and just, I imagine it kind of T-boned the whole plan. How have you approached sort of how to pivot a business that's still trying to find itself in some ways and get its systems in place on solid ground? How have you approached that thought process?
Yeah, I'll walk you through it real quick. I mean, I learn about Field Trip every day, right? But I truly didn't know who Field Trip was until day 91. Right? I believe what Field Trip was, and on the 90th day, I said, I kind of know a little bit of what Field Trip is. I know who my customer is. I know who's coming in. I know perception. And then, like, day 180 was a different, I knew things about Field Trip. And I would say my biggest regret was I never used the hospitality foundation that I was taught going to culinary school at Culinary Institute of America, or working for great people like Drew Neprion or Brian Ellis, you know, corporate executive staff of the Smith, and Jeffrey Lefcourt. You know, these people have built foundation restaurants using, you know, basic one-on-one things. And what I did was try to be somebody, I tried to create Field Trip based on what I saw other people doing versus what I truly believed in. And the pandemic really made me go back to what I knew, you know, what I've been taught my whole career. And just simple things. How do people eat? They pick up the phone, they call you. Why wasn't I taking deliveries or pickups over the phone? Shame on me, right? Why don't I have a menu in the window? Why does it have to be this clear canvas window? People want to know what food looks like and what's on your menu. They don't want to come. Some people don't want to walk in the restaurant because they feel pressured. So we put paper windows. Let people know I'm open. I put a blinky sign, that old blinking sign of open in the window. And that was kind of my first pivot in the pandemic. The things that I should have been doing in the past that I wasn't doing. And then after that, it was kind of like a survival rate. What can I do? How can I feed people? We started feeding frontline workers, adopting all hospitals in Upper Manhattan, Harlem, and the Bronx. That kept the business really, you know, keeping people employed, figuring out a good way to get cash flow flowing in. And now we'll move forward in having a foundation that will feed people in brown and black communities.
Awesome.
Chef, so
Go ahead.
so as you contemplate various revenue streams or different labor models in this pandemic, how do you prioritize what to do first, and how long do you give it to see if it sticks, or is this even something that you've had to do given your original model in the first place?
The revenue models are, right now I would say is like 3 different revenue models, right? There's takeout, there's delivery. Well, let me say there's carry out, there's delivery, now there's curbside. Like I think every instance of how somebody gets a meal has to be looked at as a revenue stream. And then how can you increase those revenue streams in different ways? That's step one. And then I would say the other step is, we don't want to stop feeding people. So then that's another sense of revenue, because it is a sale. And how many people we can feed, how can we do it at cost? And nobody's making money off of that, right? But that just keeps a cash flow, keeps cost of goods down in all those areas. I would say for me, delivery is my total focus point right now, and how to break that system. Again, looking at the numbers today from the past month this morning, give me tears in my eyes. Like I want to cry, because it's not just, the 15% or the 30% or the $5 fee or however you negotiate it. There's always some other type of fee that gets kicked in there. There was a promo fee you signed up for, or didn't like their meal, this or that. So it's like, well, I need to figure out how to control this. And the only way I can envision is I can control that by hiring a delivery person. But then what does my delivery person do when there's no deliveries? That's the gray area. But maybe my deliveries will increase. So I have no idea. But revenue lines for me over the next 6 months is focused on delivery, because dine in, I don't see it really being a sense of a revenue stream.
Jeff, I'll get to delivery in a moment. I've got a couple questions I want to ask you about that. But going back to something you were just mentioning about feeding, frontline workers, and can you explain to everybody, and including me, how that program actually works? Because I'll be honest with you, when I first heard about this whole push for restaurants to feed frontline workers and make sure that everybody had meals, I instinctively thought it was a donation, and I wondered from a business perspective how restaurants were sourcing food, paying for food, and just giving out all these meals. But that's not really how it works, is it? No,
I mean, the way it worked for us was it was called the Buy a Bowl program.
Okay.
So you can buy a bowl for somebody at $8. That $8 covered everything at cost, with our delivery people dropping it off. And then Field Trip absorbed the sales tax on all that stuff.
Gotcha.
And that's what we did. We did a buy a bowl program. Now, as we transition and we're feeding children and family, it's not a buy a bowl program. It's more or less adopt a family, and this is what it costs. So it's a different model. But yeah, we, 12 weeks ago, we took it to Twitter, and I said I just donated 40 bowls, and people were like, "I'll match you," and that's basically how it started. And for me, it was a good gesture. People in hospitals working hard. My wife weren't thinking about eating. Let's get them food. Is there a need for them to eat food? Do they not have the cash flow? Do they have money in their pocket? No. After a while, I remember my wife coming home and saying that they're getting so much donated food that half of it was getting thrown away, which then made us step back, repivot, and say, okay, who's in need now? Oh, children, families. 42 million people are laid off from work. People need food. And then we started working with the Boys and Girls Club, Madison Boys and Girls Club. We work with NYCHA, Head Start in the Bronx. We feed those families as much as we can, giving produce boxes and reheatable meals. And that's where we pivoted to. Some people support it. Some people don't support it as much as they did with frontline workers. But yeah, that's what we did. It was treated as a sale. It was not a donation for us.
And also
That's
probably got
amazing.
more employees back too. You could probably make sure you had more employees to.
Yeah, I was able to bring back 90% of my employees. Now we're back to full staff with, PPP money and also some of that stuff still rolling. I think August 1st will tell us where the industry really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Chef, I know this piece of what you're doing right now is really important to you. How do you see that continuing in the future? Let's say, like, once your core business is able to get ramped back up to, call it 100%. Is this something that you'll take off site? How do you see this working with your core operations, I should say?
As having one unit right now, this unit will feed people. How many meals that is a day, I'm not sure. And consistently keep going. We will not stop. Maybe it comes out of a ghost kitchen. Maybe it comes out of a larger square foot unit where we build a larger unit and half the unit is used for service and the other half is used for catering and feeding people. Or maybe each individual unit takes on a certain amount of meals a day and feeds their community. I mean, I look at it as if I had 200 Chipotles, I would be serving out thousands of burritos to people in need, in the pandemic, right? One burrito at a time. So, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, and not just during a pandemic. I think food insecurity in our country is like a really big issue. And I believe that restaurants can solve that by making themselves a luxury and a necessity at the same time.
And you've worked in both, having worked in both full service and now counter service, you have a very unique perspective. And is there anything that you see that one could learn from another as we go through this challenging time? For me, it was fascinating going from, let's say Michelin star dining to taco joints and seeing how it's still hospitality, but it's just delivered differently, and the business model or how it operates. Any learnings that you're seeing that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I think having like an open kitchen in a fast casual restaurant, why Chick-fil-A does amazing, right? Is that they have been able to train their staff to truly be Chick-fil-A at that moment that they punch in. And how do you do that? It's a lot of training. And I think with my staff, we talked about it today in our team meeting, is people trust us now. Let's not lose trust. Let's make sure we're wearing our masks. Let's make sure we're saying welcome to field trip. We're saying see you next trip. The moment we stop doing that, people will not come back, right? And customer service, you have to lead with customer service, especially right now, as in more and more people feel like they are not consuming the food because they need to, that they're doing it because they're helping you. And I just got off the call with a lady because one of my employees pulled his mask down because he was feeling dizzy. And instead of just stepping off the line, he did it right then and there. He said the room was spinning. And then he handed the lady her bag of food, and she refused her bag of food because she felt like he didn't make the food with the mask on. And I said, that's our protocol now and probably forever. But he was just dizzy at the moment. And, if you've been with us 100 times, as you said, that these are our practices. So you have to be really conscious of what you're doing in the space, in any restaurant space. I think as people are opening their restaurants, and mask and touching and all the things to the credit card. I think technology is going to play a major role, Salvador, in the future of this all in a very authentic way.
We bring up some good points where PPE is something that you've been open. For restaurants that haven't been open, they may not be used to working with PPE. Too many P's. PPE. And what were those like? Oh, I never thought of that. Like when I was there the other day, I went to pay, and the woman at the cashier gave me some sanitizer for my hand before I went to sign the iPad. So it's little things like that I was like, oh, I never really thought about that. What are there any other kind of learnings as you've seen dealing with PPE or working in this new surrounding?
I mean, we have a sneeze guard now that I didn't need to have one before. It really drives me crazy because it's like it pulls away from the aesthetic. Gloves are a thing. It doesn't matter if you washed your hands. People don't believe you wash your hands. Your gloves could be the most filthiest gloves out there. Gloves are key. Masks are key. Just showing what your staff look like: apron, mask, gloves, a hat on. We put tamper tape on our bags so people know their bags aren't tampered with. So there's a lot that you have to think in, and then what does that's going to reflect cost, right? So costs either go up, or like we talked about, maybe delivery costs are a little bit more even when you get in-house because the tamper tape, a couple of other moments. I've been very thankful that people have been donating masks to us for my team. But yeah, making sure your staff has an ample amount of masks. All of my staff has 5 masks each.
Now, do they have 5 masks per shift, or is that they just have 5 masks in their?
So yeah, if you have like a mask like I have here,
Yeah.
this is a reusable mask and it's reversible. So they say that these can last 3 times. So I just say you can use this mask right here, you can use for 1 shift.
Yeah.
When you come back to your next shift, I expect for you to have a different mask on than you had the following day. If you have the other, I wish I had one in front of me, they're a little cheaper, like vinyl material.
Yeah.
You can use, they say you can use those for 3 hours. So if you're giving your staff those, then you have to think about a shift. They're going to use 2, potentially 3 of those per shift. So it's all about the investment you want to make. And I think we're using so much plastic now that I'm like, okay, I can at least have a reusable mask for my team.
Chef, putting on your full service hat, dine-in experience hat that you with all your experience, how do those restaurants, how are they going to approach the pivot, or what's your advice? What's your thoughts on that?
I think full service is a lot of technology, right? Do you hand out a menu? I don't think you hand out a menu. I think you use a barcode at the table, or maybe people use their phone.
One thing I'm struggling with as I've never worked in the restaurant industry. I represent a lot of restaurants and I have a lot of friends in the restaurant industry, but I've been kind of distilling it down in my mind as to what do I go to restaurants for? And the food's secondary. It's always I go for an experience. Unless I'm with my kids, it's certainly going just for the food because the experience is never that great. but I'm going to go back to these restaurants for an experience. How then? How can a full service restaurant provide an experience under these conditions? That's what that's what I don't know.
Like, yeah, you do go to a restaurant for an experience. I'm unsure how you deliver that experience. And I think this is when we get creative and we really, everybody's experience is going to be different. If I had a full service restaurant right now, I'm believing that everybody that's coming in is for a special occasion. That special occasion is to have some type of interaction with my peers or my friends. And you're going to get a lot of large tables of 6s and 8s. And I don't think you're going to get small 2s and 4s. That's what I believe. And if you do get a 2-top or 4-top, it's the people that are just trying to get out of their house because they're over their kids and they just need a moment.
Yeah. And how do you deliver the value? This is another thing. Before you would go in and you'd pay a certain amount for a menu or for, even for a bowl or a dish. And you were expecting as a part of that to have the experience in a couple of touches, both, physical and maybe just even, not physical touches. And you would pay that amount. Now you're going to go in, not have those things and still pay the same amount. How do you deliver the value? How do you tell the customer you're still getting that value? It's just going to look different.
I think value is another big thing, is because you've been buying groceries at your house for so long. Yeah. So now you're like, okay, I went, or you've been buying from the same purveyors I've been buying from. And now you're like, okay, that fish was $13.99. That's a 6-ounce portion. You do the math. Yeah. Okay, why? Okay, it's $2.20. Why is it now $42?
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to justify that every time somebody comes in to eat. Top 1%, probably not, but the average diner, you're gonna have to justify that some way, somehow, in every experience. It's gonna be tough. This isn't gonna be easy, and I think in a full service restaurant, I think there's a way to get value at a better price than what you were delivering before. You're not the same restaurant. This is a grand opening. You need to do different things, different ways to make people want to come into your space.
I think that's a key thing there.
Sure.
I think it's smart too. You have to treat it completely different, because if not, you're bringing back the same bad habits or the challenges that we've been complaining about in terms of the struggles of restaurants. So you have to say, how do I look at this differently? And maybe it's not having your New York strip on there, but maybe it's the hanger steak, maybe it's the flat iron or whatever, the different cuts. And I think you're completely right but those people that are going right back to the same business model, I think they're missing out on a very valuable opportunity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. So Chef, kind of with that in mind, are there any particular restaurants that you feel have done a really great job with pivoting, or that you've been inspired by or impressed by, or maybe companies that you've looked up to of how they've led through these times that we're in right now?
I give a shout out to every small community restaurant across the country that have been able to keep their doors open, and the community's been able to lean on them. They've been hit the hardest. They don't have a lot of capital. They probably had a small business loan to start with, or their 401k and cash it out to open a restaurant. So my hat's off to them. I think in New York City, I think the Carbone did extremely well in building hype, as they've always been able to build hype. But also, they hit you with that daily special every day in your inbox. If you've been there and you're like, ooh, I want to get that. But then went to a membership model in the Hamptons where, guaranteed their money, and which took a lot. You talk about experience and value, Mike, took a lot of pressure off of you. If you're like, I'm going to spend this $2,000 a month to get food delivered to my house on these select days, I don't need to think anymore, and I'm getting value, right? And I hear they have some kickers where the chef comes in your house and can heat up your food for you. And I'm sure potentially if that model works, they'll then go back to that membership model in their restaurant, saying like Rayo's, this is your table. You can have this table on every Monday for how long as you want it for this amount of money. And I think if you're able to do those, some restaurants will be able to do that, ensure safety, cleanliness, distancing. But not everybody can do that. So Carbone's done great. I think June Baby's done a really good job.
What have they done there?
Huh?
What have they done at June Baby? I haven't heard.
Eduardo's done a really good job at both of his restaurants, Solaris and June Baby. He's done, first he was a community restaurant feeding people, and then he turned and he does one meal, whatever was on their menu. So Sundays he does a special, which was fried chicken. But then you can get, what is it, a CES box, right? Or that's like I think it's CES. CSA, right? Get a CSA box. In that box, he's supporting a local farmers. And then he's adding other things from his restaurant that he has been able to create on his own, pimento cheese, vinegars. So now you have June Baby at home, some recipe cards. So I don't think that he's going to die with that either. He's going to keep that going so people can do those things. I thought it was really cool what Nina Compton did. at her place in New Orleans. She sold 2 tops and cooked an 8-course meal for 2 people that could sit outside for the duration of the month at a reasonable price. She sold out. People were out because you were able to still come in her restaurant some way, somehow, or sit outside. So I thought that was cool. And then from there, you could build back up, right? You're cooking for 2, now I'm cooking for 4. Before you know, you're at 30. And your customer, your guests are like, "Ooh, I know that the restaurant's clean," or they know the proper steps. So I thought that was great. Who else did something really cool?
I mean, you're talking about Carbone almost made me think of like a timeshare for restaurants where it's like you get this on a certain number of times. And then you mentioned Nina, and I was thinking, well, is it like, you know, you're starting out 50% occupancy, things got to be different. So do you put those tables up and you auction them off and say, hey, like do something like that where, hey, it starts out at, I know, say it's gonna be $50 a head for the prefix, but if you want that, bid it on up and figure out what that is. And maybe there's a charity component, but I think now's the time to have fun's not the right word, but to be able to definitely step outside the box with 2 feet and try something new.
All the things
some-
you've been thinking about your whole life that you could not do, you can do right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And not to mention, if you still have some PPP money, you're experimenting with governmental money.
Yeah.
You might as well take advantage and say, look, you know, I'm going to try to build on this and use this money to
And
do
I think
so.
you're right. Like a lot of restaurants were like, "Oh, I gotta hire my staff back." It's like, no, you just have to hire staff. So you might need to hire some construction workers to reform your dining room. You might need to hire a cleaning crew. You don't have to hire the same people. You just need to get people into space to get to the end result.
That's exactly right. I wish more people thought like you. You know, even and now with PPP likely going to be expanded. I mean, we're waiting on the Senate vote, but likely going to be expanded. You're going to have some really good options here. And then even if you just want to take the loan over 5 years, it's going to be 5 years now. I mean, that's 1% over 5 years.
At 1%, you can't. I mean, that's why I'm like, okay, let me just hire this delivery guy.
Yeah.
It's gonna be $15 an hour. He'll be everybody will be in the tip pool. Everybody's in the tip pool at Field Trip. We don't put it out there.
Yeah.
And it's $500 is gonna cost me.
Yeah.
So if I can capture thousands of dollars and make people feel safe, I might as well do it on a 1% loan. It's not gonna make or break me. It's probably gonna help me out.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into where I want to get back to is the delivery. And I don't know if everybody listening knows this, but tomorrow, I believe June 2nd, the New York City law capping delivery fees at 50% goes into effect. And that'll, my understanding is that will be in effect up and through 90 days past when the executive order, the state of emergency order is lifted. So that's, what do you think about that? How's that? What are your thoughts on that? I can tell you, I don't like when government interferes with private business.
I called my Seamless guy and was like, yo, this is before. I was like, I need you to drop the 2 things. I need you to drop the rate from 30 or 29% you charge me to 15, please, or lower. And I need to get paid differently. I can't get paid every 22 days. I need to get paid weekly. I need to put a new system in place because I had to go back to my vendors and be like, my cash flow has changed because it's a delivery cash flow model. I can't pay you on a 22 or 30-day terms.
Yeah.
They had to understand that. So yeah, 15% is cool. I think 15% we all could afford. And they're doing more deliveries than they've ever done because it's 90% of our business. So it's not like it was 20% of my business before and you're taking 30% of my 20. You're taking 50, your pie has increased to 90% of all business. So Grubhub, Seamless, DoorDash, they all should be making more money than they've ever made. And if they're not, then I'm unsure of what's going on over there because I think last week we did 80 deliveries on Seamless, right? At a $22 check average, something like that. I don't know. Yeah. So you take 50% of that, that's just me. There's hundreds, thousands.
Yeah. Now you mentioned hiring a driver. How are you going to try to internalize or do the delivery in-house to reduce the fee completely or just eliminate the fee?
Yeah, I'm going to do the delivery in-house. So when I hire the driver, we'll just take the delivery right through our website, right? Using Toast Tab. Yeah. And then I'll still keep Seamless. It just be our own drivers. DoorDash, Uber Eats. Maybe I keep Caviar because it's just a different clientele. But I won't have anybody of that. I'll just be pushing everybody right to us, and then Seamless just because there's a base of people that use Seamless. I use Seamless. I think we all do. It has the most options. So, but our own delivery drivers will be taking them, and hopefully it'll start with 1 and increase to 2. And I can reflect the pricing. I can bring the pricing down.
Yeah, JJ, when you see a lot of full service people getting into delivery that weren't in it before, especially on the high end. And you've obviously studied the landscape. You've seen the pitfalls and the potholes in the road. What are some of the biggest learnings or struggles that you faced that you could kind of say, hey, I've learned, and here's some of my learnings?
I think a lot of people don't have money or limited cash. So you have to really be thinking about perceived value. What is it when you get your delivery? Like nobody's spending $150 to get a delivery. If I'm spending $150, that's for a family of 4.
Yeah.
On the high end.
I think that's high end.
I was gonna order sushi the other night. I was like, woo.
Yeah.
Okay, I really want it. I'll get it, but I'm cooking the next 2 nights. Yeah. So if you're gonna come back and do delivery, you have to. It's a different restaurant. It's a different model. And if you want to offer those high-end things, great, offer them. But you got to offer something that people want on delivery, or you're just gonna hurt the market. You're coming back as the same place. You've been complaining that you want change, and then you're coming back and doing the same thing, and you're gonna. I don't see how you survive off a model that way on the high end. I think you have to think about who you are very, very, very differently. I want to even drop my prices.
I have a question when I order online, I like to be told all of the fees. Don't hide them. Just tell me and let me make my choice. How are you communicating to customers? Because, I ordered a pizza here in Boulder last week from a pizza shop that I really love. And the pizza was $21 for a big one for the office. And when I got to check out, the delivery fee plus the 20% tip, plus I think the tax and some other surcharge, like $16 in fees or something. And I did it out of convenience, but I'm thinking, I'm not going to do this again. I'll just go get it.
We have a small delivery fee on our website. I think it's like $2.99 or $3.99. And if you go like in a far range, it's $6.99.
But are you upfront? Do you just tell people they don't have to get to the checkout page?
When you go to checkout, it's at the bottom. I haven't added in verbiage yet, but when I announce to the world that we're gonna have our own delivery staff, I will say these are our delivery prices due to the fact that we have to pay for gas, tolls, tamper tape. Like we're gonna list out why it costs that much.
That's the value piece. I like that.
Yeah, and potentially come in the store for this price. I'm not sure, but I'm not gonna put on like a 15% surcharge or a $2.99 delivery fee. The price will just reflect what it is. And it's not going to be much more, maybe $1, $2, nothing outrageous.
And then will there be a tip in addition to the delivery fee?
Yeah, you want to leave a tip for the service, you can put your tip on, 10, 15, 20, 22, but that'd be all on, that'd be up to you. You won't see any other additional fees added on to that.
Gotcha. I like that.
Interesting.
I think you do bring up a good point. Just like we were talking before, it's a chance to try something new inside your 4 walls, but it's also a chance to try something new outside your 4 walls. And your operation is pretty streamlined, but when you look at the fine dining, it is a chance to say, hey, do you have to offer the entire menu? Or do you try something new that, hey, what's our signature dish that we've always done? And
somebody came in today and was like, oh, you have fluke? I was like, oh yeah, fluke is great. I'm going to have striped bass too. Price is great. Striped bass price is amazing. $6.95 right now. Haven't seen it that low in a long time. So our fishbowl is going to have striped bass towards the end of the week. But they were like, oh my God, I ordered from a restaurant downtown. I picked up. They had fluke with corn and green beans like you have. It was $42. And I was like, oh my God, my bowl's $12.99.
I'll sell you 3 of those, 4 of those.
4 ounces, but yeah, you're not sitting there. You're not giving a service. You have to think different. I mean, listen, I don't want any more competitors in the space that I'm in as it is. But I think I'm not opening up my back of my 20-seat dining room till September 1. That is so I can see how the city adjusts. And then it just eases people back in. We open up September 1 with 10 seats, then October 1 with 20 seats. It just gives a way to, I think, give everybody confidence that they can come here and sit here and eat in the restaurant.
Now, Chef, do you have a liquor license?
I have a beer and wine license.
Okay, and is that, do customers generally pick up a beer or wine, or is that an exceptional kind of purchase? Oh,
People, when they use, like, so I realized that when you do beer and wine and fast casual, if you have stuff special, people will get it. So we used to have Harlem Brew. It was very special. We would sell out of it instantly because you couldn't get it anywhere. Now I have good stuff, but it's been sitting around for a while. Wine and cans sell extremely well. Sake Juice Box does well. It's just trying to find those things, again, at an effective price. I mean, the can of wine from, who do I get my can of wine from? Really good people, really good stuff. It's like $2.39 a can. I sell it for $6.
Yeah.
But, you know, the cost of that is still not ideal, right? If that was a restaurant, you would be pouring that canned glass of wine for $10. You know, so I'm always looking for partners out there to partner with on the can side, beer side. We're gonna do something really exciting with some low proof cocktails coming for the summertime. This summer, I'm gonna do a watermelon slushy, which I'm excited about. So, you know, just thinking about how people eat, how I want to eat, what I'm doing when I'm outside, and then giving people that in our fashion. But if you are a restaurant, you have full liquor, I think it's a good way to take advantage of the summer of people being able to grab and go from your restaurant. If I was at a full service restaurant, if the Henry was there and all the crazy things didn't happen, those windows that opened up, I would open up those windows on the bar side and I would pass drinks down to people walking around. And I would create a bar hop program with other bars where you could bar hop and maybe you buy a ticket and we all split it so you can jump from one bar to another bar throughout the day, like being on vacation.
I like it.
What I like about the way you're thinking is it's very community centric, right? Like you're really thinking about who's nearby and your specific audience in your community. And I think, you know, I don't know you super well, but, you know, just based on what I do know, you are very community driven. You know, can you talk a little bit about when you developed your concept and moved into this community, what your philosophy was on the impact that you wanted to have and the place that you felt Field Trip would have in Harlem?
There used to be this really famous restaurant in Field Trip called the MG Diner. Tons of people ate there. It was one of the first like historical places in Harlem, known for its fancy sign. It's a sneaker store now, which is a shame. And that was like my inspiration. Like if there was an MG Diner in the modern day, there would probably be hundreds of them in communities around the country. And I think the goal for me, when you build a restaurant, it's really a community connector. You're connecting your community, right? You're sitting with your official leaders, your community board. You're doing all this before you open the doors. So why not keep that going? Why are you leaving that behind? Why are you only using that in that one moment? And I think in the toughest times or in the greatest times, your community who dines with you. They're the ones that are there every day, regardless how rich the community is or how poor it is. They're the ones that are eating with you all the time. And the destination people are just the icing or the cherries on top to help you get some money dropped to your bottom line. So yeah, community has been the focus. And when I say community is my employees are from the community, right? We support, our ice cream soft serve is made from another restaurant in the community. Their Sugar Hill Creamery makes the base of our ice cream for us. So it's a collaboration. So it's really being an anchor to support everybody. I think Marcus does it well. I read Rooster with musical artists. And that's what then drives people to come in, because they're coming to your restaurant knowing, oh my God, I'm going to get that ice cream because buying that ice cream from Field Trip supports Sugar Hill. Or I think the biggest thing was having Kira, our supervisor. People were seeing her come to work every day like, oh my God, I'm going to spend my last $20 here. So I know Kira has a job, and that's, I think, how it becomes really full circle in building a community restaurant. And then when you try to put this into a new community, people know what you stand for and who you are.
And for people that haven't been to Field Trip, it's not ice cream, it's rice cream.
Oh yes, rice cream, yes. Yeah, it's rice cream, yes.
It's delicious too, very refreshing, which I think is awesome during the summer. But as we're talking about that, and also about the reopening of so many restaurants, I think you bring up a good point, in like how we can treat it as a new opening on every front. And with that means how you can lean into the community. And if you think about every new business that's opening up and taking a community focus with that, I think that's a huge opportunity to enrich the community through that in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at one thing that's going on in society right now, right? So like protests, right? There's looting happening, there's buildings burning down. You could try to be the restaurant, we've talked about this internally today, to be the place to hand out masks, a fruit cup, and a water bottle to protesters, right? That are coming through potentially your space or that's passing by. And you can say, I'm gonna give out 100 free water bottles or 100 free fruit cups or masks to people in my community that are going to protest, right? People that know you stand by them, they'll come buy lunch from you or be there for dinner. You have, in these times more than ever, you have to show what your values and your morals are, I think, more than ever, because people are paying attention. They're at home. They're thinking about things. They're reflecting on themselves. We're all reflecting on ourselves more than ever. And I think this is a good way to stand and connecting with your community. You don't have to do that. That's just an example. You might want to do something else. We did hunger. We're talking about protests. We have a lot of people that are coming in the Field Trip that have their signs either after a protest or going to a protest that are coming by just to say hello, checking on us, seeing how we're doing. So we want to stand with them in some type of way.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point that resonated with me as you were saying that is, so when we do emerge from a pandemic, we are going to be opening in a recession. And so people are going to be more conscious about where they spend their money and how they spend their money. So it's not just the transaction of I'm giving you money and give me this. They want to also look at that as an investment, and what are they supporting for the success of that. And so I think being able to, clearly define what you stand for and how you're trying to I think people are gonna be dining more locally, and more locally in New York means by your neighborhood, and they want to make sure they're giving they're investing in that.
Yeah, I mean,
people they'll remember. Yeah,
I mean, in the beginning of this, all right. I mean, there was that New York Times article, I think it was like Missy, Andrew Carmelini, Marcus, somebody else all wrote, and they were writing about how the restaurant industry won't come back the same. And I went back and I read there was 400 comments. And I remember reading this one comment with this guy, I'm not gonna say where he worked. And he was like, they promised me my 3 weeks of PTO. I went home to tell my wife that we will be all right for 3 weeks. To this date, I have not received my PTO. And people were commenting on that, saying, oh my God, this is horrific. This is terrible. And then people were then reaching out to me and saying, would you been able to pay your PTO to your staff? And I was like, we probably couldn't have paid our PTO, but we would have paid our PTO because it's the right thing to do, right? And then as the business, there's just things as being a business owner, we would have had to take on our own. And people are watching, people are paying attention, and they're gonna come out and spend their money when they do come out to these places that they wanna support, that they don't wanna see fail because they only went there one time or they weren't there enough because they thought they would be there next year. In all those areas.
And I think if people don't realize that we're always on stage, and that stage has been set, so people will be watching, and that goes in the back of their mind as how they want to, where they want to go work. If if I'm not, I might not have to go back to that restaurant that I worked at before because I didn't like how they handled the situation, or, you know, as they went through this. And maybe I really liked how that other restaurant down the street handled it with their employees and what they've done there for community. So I actually want to put my personal brand to help support that. And so I think there's going to be a very different mentality of people coming out of this. And I think the good people will persevere. I'm hopeful.
You know, and Chef,
Yeah.
you remind me again, you've only been open for 9 months?
Yeah, we'll be our 1 year will be July 10th. So what month is it? June?
So you're still, I mean, you're still building a brand and building trust and loyalty, and now you've got to do it in the most dire, severe consequences. I mean, it sounds like you're taking great advantage of that and building just such an unbelievable brand.
Yeah, what would happen for us?
Yeah.
What would have occurred in what we did in 2 to 3 months would have taken me 2 to 3 years to do.
Yeah, that's powerful.
The pivot,
Amazing.
the things we wanted to do,
Mhm.
community
Yeah.
trust, touching people.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Because
that's
the
also
diner
good.
today
Yeah.
wasn't the diner when we started. That's another thing. My diner today is the people that are at home, sheltering in place. The people that live in low income housing, the projects, my people on the corners, people driving from the Bronx. That's my customers, not the teachers. It's not the doctor's offices or the people that were working in the state building. It's a totally different customer that we weren't touching before. So hopefully we have the new customer and then the old customer comes back, they combine, and then
Mhm.
yeah.
That's the same for all restaurants where, again, back to the pivot or the delivery or the takeout, whatever you're doing now, how do you do it for the community? And if you are charging a lower price to make it more accessible, or you are creating menu items that speak to that community, that only strengthens the whole foundation of your business. And then when other things come in, it just comes in on top of that. So you're missing out that opportunity if it's just, oh, I'm going to go back to this model where I was relying on people from taking the subway to get to me, or to, you know, get an Uber or taxi. That's going to be a big void if you're not able to fill it in with folks in the community.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Let's, at this time, we'd like to ask you a couple questions that we have. And we're going to start with Dustin. Dustin, what question do you have for Chef right now?
A little free run freestyle for you, JJ.
That's right.
So we'll put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Squeezing out now that we're getting to the point, we got to squeeze out now the best juice.
So Chef, my first question for you would be, when this is all over, what is the first restaurant, besides your own, of course, that you're most looking forward to visiting when things return to quote unquote normal?
I'm gonna go. I gotta support my friends, so I probably eat at a different restaurant each day that I can. But it definitely is gonna be like Pig and Cow, Leah Cohen, PJ at Scampi. Those are the first two that always come to mind. We're constantly talking and checking up on each other.
Mhm.
So those are the two places I'll be at.
Love it.
Love it.
So my question for you is, if you were to open up a restaurant from scratch now, knowing as you're looking at your crystal ball of where we're headed as an industry, what would that restaurant look like?
I think I would do it. It would be called JJ's, and it'd be chicken and fish.
Okay.
And then we have like a fried chicken window, the neon light. I'm all, I love the neon light. And you could come up to the window and you can grab, food out of the window. Very kind of spacious, cool booth, like old school booth seating, kind of a little bit high that could protect you and insulate you from the next person.
Full service, counter service, how would you?
I think I would have a mixture of both. I would have some full service and counter service. I think people love interactions with other people, so it would have that. But it wouldn't be the typical New York restaurant where you're piled on top of each other. And but I would give people the option of dining in and dining out, and it would give us also the flexibility of hitting both categories as a takeout and a dine-in restaurant.
And you wouldn't need a menu that had 12 different chicken and fish appetizers and 12 different chicken and fish entrees and 12 different chicken and fish desserts either. You could streamline it, tighten that box.
Streamline, like super delicious.
Like it.
I have to just deviate just a touch here. Where would you put that restaurant?
Good question.
Oof. Oof.
Go ahead, take your time.
The first one, because we know it's going to be successful.
Yeah, where's this chain going? You can pick
not
anywhere.
sure, man. This one wouldn't be in Harlem. Maybe I put it back. I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania. Maybe in Northeast Pennsylvania somewhere. Maybe, yeah, probably Northeast PA. If
Where in
back
Pennsylvania did you grow up?
What did you say?
Where in Pennsylvania did you grow up? What town?
I grew up in a small town called Tobyhanna, which is the Poconos.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
right by Camelback, Mount Airy Lodge. So yeah, probably like roll off the exit and my spot be right there.
Cool.
Get the skiers and the summertime people.
I'd
Nice.
stop if I saw that neon sign flashing if I'm driving down the highway there.
Definitely.
Well, these guys know me. I love neon. I'm addicted to great neon, and so I would just fly in just to see the neon, and then I'd also. All right, my
I'd be one of
question.
the skiers, so I'd visit too.
Yeah, I'd ski too, or just
Après ski. Yeah.
drink great beer
Exactly.
and wine. My question for you is, based on everything you've learned in the last couple months, and then just throughout your career, what are the final words of wisdom or any insights you'd like to impart on our listeners here today?
I think in the darkest times is the moment for you to create some of your best stuff ever. And creating is what really got us to where we are today, believing in yourself. So create. The pandemic is not over. The economy's coming back halfway full. Don't let anybody fool you.
No.
Because all business owners have been working in their business, not on their business. And they're starting to realize what they need and they do not need.
Love it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and
Thank you guys, I appreciate it.
great,
Yeah, this was great,
stuff
Chef.
there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, really inspiring. Thank you.
I'm gonna. Dustin always says I have these great quotes, but what I just heard from you is one of the best.
Oh,
You've been working on your business or in your business, not on your business. I love that.
Mhm.
That's true. I've learned through this that people need to really pay attention to their business at all times, not just the bad times.
Mhm.
And I've also today, guys,
I love
if
it.
you're not right here, if you're not hauling ass, you're dragging ass. Just think about it. Again, Chef, thanks so much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us. We are going to get these podcasts up soon, I hope by the end of the week. So these shows live on YouTube. You can listen to them anytime. Please share, please subscribe. Chef, tell all your friends about it. They can come here and watch you. It wasn't just live. It'll be recorded and live here. So make sure you do that. Like the channel, subscribe, and like I said, podcast coming soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you, Chef.
Chef.